Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Unsung Heroes. My name is Rick Reinhardt, and today we are going to be talking about Taz. Now, a lot of people, for whatever reason, they remember Taz at the end of his career in the WWE as a commentator or as somebody who had a little run there, but make no mistakes about it. When Taz was in ECW, he was a fucking monster. The build-up to the ECW first barely legal pay-per-view was off the hook, and it was pretty much built around Taz and Sabu. I know the Raven stuff and you know, the Dreamer, Terry Funk, Sandman, Stevie Richards thing was, you know, a big part of the show as well, but I would say the biggest build-up of that whole pay-per-view was Taz versus Sabu. They built a whole year up to that. And, the way that Taz would just lay people out with them clotheslines and them fucking T-bone Taz plexes and them German suplex releases. And, he was doing something that it was so pro wrestling, but it was so different at that time period to be doing it and hitting people that hard. I mean, he innovated being, a stiff style worker, probably more so than anybody in that time period. I mean, he was dumping people on their fucking necks. The ECW old highlight roll, when they were showing all the crazy shit that they were doing, they'd always have Taz in their fucking, T-bone Tazplex and fucking Mikey Whipwreck or somebody like that. Going down to the arena a lot, we saw him down there. And I got to say that, Taz was a gigantic part of ECW. It would have been interesting to see what he would have done in WCW if he was pushed on a Raven-style push or whatever. But we never got to see that. Instead, we saw his career wind down in the WWE. Ironically enough, it was at Madison Square Garden where he did his first show with the company, which was his dream show to do. He always said he always wanted to work at Madison Square Garden, so that's pretty fucking cool that he got to live out his dreams. It would have turned out different for him if his body would have survived ECW and he was able to get into the WWE for a long time and have a good run, as we've seen with other people. If the Dudleys could make it, I have no doubt that Taz could have made it. If Eddie Guerrero could have been a world champion, I have no doubt in my mind that Taz could have been a world champion if utilized properly. I just watched some of his USWA stuff when he was all dressed up as the Tasmaniac. That was kind of interesting. He was around a while before he really kind of caught his mark. When he caught his mark or whatever, when he got on his shit and started really getting over, I noticed that him and Bill Alfonso had a really good thing going. Bill Alfonso was his manager and would come out and they would do the he'd have the whistle and they would do the Taz's dojo thing where it's like he's stretching people out or whatever. That's the concept. And then it was just really good to see Bill Alfonso with Taz. And to be honest with you, I kind of lost it for Taz a little bit after when they turned him into a face. And I kind of lost it for Fonzie when he went with Van Dam and Sabu. So I think that Fonzie and Taz together was one of the best combinations that I have ever seen in wrestling, because Fonzie was just wild, and then Taz would just fucking beat you up and talk shit and make you feel, make the fans feel like pieces of shit. I just saw a thing where he was calling out somebody in the crowd, man to man. He just fucking made the guy look like a total piece of shit. And it was just awesome, man. But yeah, I gotta say I'm a huge fan of Taz, and I'm gonna say that I'm just going off the whim here, and I'm just telling you from what I saw. Taz's prime was definitely 96 to 97. That whole build up to barely legal, Taz was in his prime. That was the Taz that fucking I'll always remember. And I don't know why some people get stuck in these later roles. Like with Taz, I don't know why a lot of people's memory about him would be in WWE as like a commentator or something like that, because to me that's really not what he did. I like what he's doing now in AEW. I have to say that I'm impressed with his mic skills, and I'm impressed with the fact that he's just with guys that look tough. Like Brian Cage fucking looks the part, and if you got Taz on the mic, that's good shit. But yeah, there's plenty other things that I could say about his ECW run. I've seen him wrestle a lot of times in the ECW arena. But it's that whole 98, 99 era. It was, I don't know how to describe it. Like the way it was in ECW at that time was like, I'm not really like remembering all of the matches that were pay-per-view main events, and I know Taz was in a lot of them, but like that's not what comes to my memory when I think about ECW. However, there were some really good shows and some really great spots around that time, and it's always great to see how ECW evolved. Sometimes when things evolve, sometimes they devolve, and I would say Barely Legal for me was the height of just catching the buzz about ECW, and then when we got to the arena and we would go to all those shows, some of the highlights for me are that I haven't really seen a lot of those shows, so like it's kind of like a big mystery to me, like thinking back on it, like what happened here, what happened there. I remember when the Sandman came back. That was like the loudest pop I've ever heard in my life, and I remember the Sabu Terry Funk Born to Be Wired match. But I do remember just Taz coming out and really just fucking hitting people hard, man, and really just throwing them around. At that time, when we were all young, we all grew up and we all wanted, we all had our favorite guys that we would emulate and stuff like that. And for me, Taz was one of those guys that I evolved into when I was kind of, fucking around with people. Like I always liked Arn Anderson. I always liked Kurt Hennig. And then when I started to like Taz, that was when I started to choke people out when it came to some of the old FSW days that we won't really get into here. But, Taz did become one of my favorite wrestlers at one time. Yeah. And Bo Red, you're off the hook, if you know what I'm saying, all right? Taz, I just want to sum it up by saying that, Taz is a human suplex machine, a real technician in the ring, and would hit somebody, so hard that their mother would feel it. But we love Taz, and here at the Pro Wrestling Archives, I just want to say thank you guys for listening, lending me your ears. ECW forever. Peace.